Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to the Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, how are we on Friday?
Doing pretty good. Ready to keep things rolling here as we get further into May. It's crazy just how fast this time is going by.
I know we're already almost 10 days deep into May.
Yeah. It's that's wild. Hey, if it keeps going at this pace, next thing you know, we'll be getting ready to start basketball
I was
season
gonna say
again.
it'll be October, November before we know it. So,
Right.
well, we've got time though. That we've got some topics to talk about this episode. Some things. The As the way it would play out, Grant. We talked about the other day the few games that were scheduled of the non-con schedule for the Boilermakers, and about 35 minutes after our show was done, the rest of the schedule came out. So, looking at the Purdue schedule, we knew a few of these, but they've got they start in early November with Evansville and Oakland before they go on the road to play that Alabama game. A couple of should be wins, but at least some notable opponents, I guess, with Evansville and Oakland. At least we've heard of them.
Yeah, especially Oakland. I mean, you
Right,
have what they did against Kentucky in the
right.
NCAA tournament a couple years ago, and they have just been a more prominent mid-major school in recent years. So that'll be an interesting game to kind of test these Boilermakers before they go at Alabama. So I think that's one that stands out to me from those
Mm-hmm.
mid-major games that they have for sure.
Then we mentioned that they were playing them, but we didn't know dates or anything. And as like I said, 35 minutes after we got done talking about it, Iowa State comes to town on December 6th, and Marquette comes in the following Saturday on December 13th. A couple of all leading up to the next week, the next week in Indy against Auburn. So a three straight Saturdays, a pretty tough. And there's at this point nothing in between. So like they play those games, they've got some time to prep, but it's still a tough schedule stretch right there.
Right. I've heard it said and pointed out that there will probably be a couple Big Ten games scattered
Right,
in there.
right.
Probably late November to early December would be my
Mm-hmm.
guess. So that'll make it interesting. But I do like the fact that in December they only have those games scheduled, so there aren't games in between when they're trying to gear up for finals and they're trying to play these
Right.
tough non-conference opponents. Having that time where they only have to play once on a weekend I think is really smart, and I'm really happy they did that because they'll be able to fully prepare for those teams and play good basketball and still manage academics as well, which for student athletes, especially at the level of Purdue men's basketball, it's really difficult to balance both of those sometimes. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really smart move from Painter and the coaching staff to schedule it that way.
Yeah, and you throw in Eastern Illinois there. Look, I think it's the last Friday of November. So I mean, and then we talked about the Baja Mar, the Akron. So this schedule, and it looks like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There could be maybe another one or two, but I don't think so. I think this was the full amount of the preseason non-conference schedule. And like you said, the games Iowa State that Iowa Eastern Illinois, Iowa State, Marquette, and Auburn stretch. That's there's only one game a week, and like you said, there might be a couple of Big Ten games scheduled in there because they've gone to that so they can fit it all into the same amount of time that they need to. But it's going to be a nice little test for the Boilermakers in that preseason and going to the bon, what is it, the Barma. Oh, I
The
just
Baja
looked at
Mar.
Baja Mar. Golly, I the Baja Mar. That's going to be nice because they're used to playing a little bit of a Thanksgiving time ish uh, little tournament style of play.
Yeah, and they usually perform really well there. They've done what, four in a row that
Four in a
they've
row.
won, including a couple big ones at the PK 85 and the
Yeah.
Maui those back-to-back years. So I love watching those events as a fan. I love Feast Week, one of my favorite weeks of college
Yep.
basketball.
Yep.
And so I'm glad Purdue's got one. Honestly, it's probably going to be more similar to last year where it was a little less competitive, only played 2 games compared to like what it was in Maui in the PK 85. But it's still going to be 2 games and 2 quality games as well. We're not talking about schools that won't be able to compete and play good basketball. So looking forward to that. But at the same time, I also like the fact that it's not too overloaded in that Feast Week
Right.
portion when you have Iowa State, Marquette, and Auburn waiting on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I don't doubt the coaching staff and those, because I know the staff has some kind of say of how schedules get made out, even though they're made out years in advance. Still is one of those that they have a say of like, look, we don't want to put these all right in here right after we get back from a potential 2-game weekend, or a 2-game weekend no matter what, in the Bahamas, and then we come back. Okay, we got Eastern Illinois, kind of a warm up to get used to being back at home, or back in the mainland United States, and jump right back in then after that to Iowa State. So a nice looking preseason schedule. There are some tough games in here: Auburn, Marquette, Iowa State, Alabama. We talked about all these, and that's going to prep this team going forward as well. As well as in the Big Ten season, it's going to be a murderer's row because that's just what happens in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be tough. They've got a lot of tough opponents scheduled. But you look at this schedule, like if they'd had this exact schedule last season instead of this season, it would have been a lot tougher. You would have played basically 4 top 10 teams with
Yeah.
Marquette, Iowa State, Auburn, Alabama, plus whoever you get in the Bahamar. This year, you've got an Alabama team that's lost a lot and still should be solid, but is probably a lot more beatable than they would have been a year ago.
Yeah.
Even though it's still going to be tough it's on the road, but they're not the same Alabama team as they were. Iowa State, sort of the same situation. They lost a couple big pieces, haven't made any crazy moves in the portal. Marquette's lost a lot. Auburn should be able to bring in some good pieces, but again, they lost Baker Mazara to the portal. They lost Janai Broom. All of these teams are a little weaker than they were last season, so I think it works out well for Purdue, where they're going to still play good teams, but it's still not going to be quite like the deadly punch every single time where they could lose 3 or 4 of them. I think Purdue is really looking good to win most, if not all, of these games.
Well, and Iowa State lost Ivasic, who transferred to Illinois to play with, I believe, his brother there. I believe on the team there. I think that's where he went to.
Yeah, well, was it the Ivasic that played for Arkansas? Because
did they? Maybe that's what it was.
I think it was Arkansas because he played
went to Iowa
Cal.
State. Didn't he? I don't know. It's so tough to tell.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was at Kentucky and then went with Cal to Arkansas. But either way, they lost a couple of their best players, like a couple of their guards that they had. Curtis Jones, I think, was one of them. And today, again, I don't think they've made any major moves in the portal of like top stars. Like they've obviously brought in some pieces, but they had basically 2 All-American contenders, and the 2 guards that they had, they lost them both. So they are expected to take a step back.
Well, I'm as you were speaking, I'm looking it up. So because I was for sure that I saw something, but I'm not. I did not see that. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate. I don't even know why I said that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's I don't
know. But let's along the lines, excuse me, of portal / NIL. Matt Painter made some comments this last week. Not this week, I guess it was late last week that he made the comments about the fact that almost all of the players, yes, it was the Ivasic that came from Arkansas over to Illinois. Yeah. He made the comment that a lot of the players didn't take pay cuts, but could have made a lot more money elsewhere. But they forewent some of what they could have, or even at Purdue, forewent some of what they could have made in order to be able to bring in enough people to put together what they would think is, and many people do agree, the number one team in the country and probably the front runner for the national championship.
Yeah, it's a really interesting comment. I think that its foundation is very true. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of Purdue's players, primarily the big three coming back, could have hit the transfer portal, could have made mega millions compared. Like they're still getting paid well, but they could have definitely gotten more. Braden
Mm-hmm.
Smith obviously is the one that comes to mind automatically. But I think even there's something to be said for guys like CJ Cox and some of the other transfers Purdue pulled in. It's not that they're not getting paid well and that they're not getting decent money, but the idea that they could have gone to a school like, a school like Washington, who maybe isn't as loaded talent wise as a team like Purdue, but they have money to spend and they can pull in a guy like Fletcher Lawyer and give him several $1,000,000 to come play there. And he would have been one of their stars. Instead, Fletcher Lawyer chooses Purdue. And that's the kind of sacrifice that Painter's talking about there, where it's like, these guys could have gone to other schools that don't have the culture we have, don't have the success factor that we have, but made more money. But instead, they chose to be here at Purdue with the culture that we have and the fact that we can put together one of the best teams in the country, even though it means taking a little less money. It shows that these Purdue players care more about, or care more than just dollars and cents, I should say,
I was going to say,
and
because
want to buy into this Purdue program.
Braden Smith is probably going to make close to $4 million this year. I mean,
Right.
it's just, and if you look at the total payroll to this team, which still baffles me that we're talking about payrolls for college. This team, we did a segment on a previous show where we talked about the top 10 million plus. Purdue's going to put together probably a roster that is between $8 and $9 million. That's not not a small amount of money. That's probably still top 25, like in payroll. So to say that Purdue doesn't spend, bye, go, get out of here. Because you know what? If they put together a roster that is, let's say, $9 million, and they win the national championship, there are going to be people asking, "How did you do this?" Or trying to mimic how they did it. And I don't know how easy it is to basically build a culture. Matt Painter had the luxury, and I'll say the luxury, of doing a bunch of the grunt work to develop this culture when NIL wasn't a thing. And now he's got it in place, and NIL is a thing, and they can offer money. They do have money. So I'm not saying he's going to go out and spend $10 million every year, but he's going to be able to say, "Hey, look, we can get you a good amount of money. You just got to put work in and become better."
Yeah,
And then it comes.
Right. I think what you said about the fact that Painter built this before NIL is super important, because keep in mind, Matt Painter's been at Purdue for 20 years.
Right.
This isn't a culture you build overnight. There were some years that were really tough as far as success goes for Purdue.
For sure.
That Painter just kind of grinded out. They kind of came out of those ashes a little bit, if you will, and developed this culture, but also found out how to win basketball games. And Painter's coaching has developed along the way, all of it kind of building on each other to where now not only do they have this repetitive success factor where every year it feels like they're nationally relevant, they also have this culture built of a competitive but also a unified team culture that really speaks a lot. And now it can withstand the challenges that NIL present and that the transfer portal presents. And as opposed to like trying to start it now, because it's just so hard to build a culture when the guys are already consumed with seeking out money and seeking out different roles with the transfer portal and how they can hop to all these different schools. So I do, in a sense, pity some of those schools that don't have this culture, would like to have it, because the difficulty level of building that culture has skyrocketed.
For sure. And like I said, the people will be coming, "How did you do this?" And he's going to say, "Well, go back in time 20 years and start building this then and get to the point," because it just does, like you said, you can't build that overnight. It's actually the antithesis of overnight. Like he built this over the course of tens of years, like double, like 2 decades, or let's say from the start to the start of NAL, 15 years of coaching and developing and taking a what I think it was a 3-15 or a 5-13 last place finishing Purdue Boilermakers. The first year he took them, he had to build it up and build it up and build it up and get it to the point where, like, look, we may not be the best on paper, but you know what? They're going to leave Mackey, or they're going to watch us leave going, thank goodness they're done. We're done with them tonight, and that's what he's done. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and he will credit a lot of that to his players. Like, he
Sure.
talks about that class he brought in with Robbie Hummel, Etwan Moore,
the baby
Juwan
Boilers.
Johnston. Right. He talks about that class all the time because they came in, they were good kids, they worked hard, and they won basketball games.
Yep.
And so, but that just talks more about the culture. Like, it's not just about what Matt Painter's put in himself, but he's had the right people come along, people he recruited, people he hired onto his coaching staff to come develop this culture with him. And it's so big now. It's bigger than just one person or anything like that. It's bigger than the sum of the parts. I think that's what makes Purdue's culture really cool.
And I think one of his biggest hires for coaches is Coach Brantley. Right. He was a big man under Gene Cady. I think Brantley was there maybe 2 years after Painter left and graduated from Purdue, and then Brantley, Glenn Robinson, Conzo Martin, and Brandon Brantley came in and were doing their thing. So it's huge. He was a good post player. He was a good big man, and that's why I believe they're so efficient at making 7-footers really good athletic players in the system that Matt Painter has put together.
And it's grown throughout time too. I mean, you look at like AJ Hammonds, Isaac Haas, they were good players, but they weren't the Zach Edey's and Travion Williams of the world. The Purdue bigs from 10 years ago versus the last couple of years have developed, I think, even better. That system's continuing to grow. So another one of those areas, I think you could say, of just over time, Purdue developing into something better than what they were.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I am not going to say he isn't telling the truth. He might be embellishing it just a little bit. Maybe not every single player could have went and made a ton more money, but they probably could have made more.
And maybe they couldn't have made more money, but they could have gotten more minutes, like CJ Cox, Jakari Harris. They're sacrificing potential playing time by staying with Purdue, because CJ Cox might start depending on what they do with Omer Meyer. Jakari Harris, if he starts, it means CJ Cox isn't. They're fighting for those minutes. You've got freshmen entering the mix. Like, there's going to be not a lot of minutes to go around for all these players. They could have gone elsewhere, either a mid-major school or even other Big Ten schools, and probably been guaranteed bigger roles. But instead, they chose to stay at Purdue. So even if they aren't sacrificing money, most of these players, I do think, are sacrificing something to stay at Purdue. And Matt Painter could have easily been leading to that as well.
Yeah, just the way he said it it seemed like it was all about money, and I don't think this team is all about. Don't get me wrong; they like their money. Don't get me wrong. What person doesn't want to get paid to do what they're doing? I get that, but it's not like, well, I'm leaving because I need this much money, or I'm leaving because that school just said they're going to give me X amount of dollars. You know what? I know that school's telling me they'll give me X amount of dollars, but you know what? I'll take less to come here or to stay here so we can do what we started out to do 4 years ago.
Yeah. And, like, people are talking about how Purdue is spending money. Like, their roster is worth more than most rosters in Division I basketball. Like, sure, you have your heavy hitters, $10+ million rosters, but then you're looking at Purdue. But I think you look at the value, the amount of talent and culture that Purdue has compared to how much money they're spending, they have to be off the charts as far as the value they're getting out of the millions that they're spending.
Yeah.
And I think that's another really good factor.
Bang for the buck.
Right, right. As the old saying goes.
So we've talked about the Matt Painter comments. We've talked about the rest of the schedule that we missed out by 35 minutes on. There were a couple of other things. Just the other day, I saw that a few of the guys from the national championship team or national championship finalist team was back in West Lafayette playing some pickup ball.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Zach Edey, Ethan Morton, and Mason Gillis all came back to play some pickup or something like that. And Mackey with some of the guys in the team right now, and even some others like Isaiah Thompson was in there with his gear on. Looked like he was getting some shots up as well. So I tell you what, personally, I love that when like these former players that are not too far removed from the program come back and be a part of the culture, especially guys that were looked up to the way they were and that accomplished what they did. I think that goes a long way for the culture, which we've harped on about all episode, but also just building that encouragement and that hype for what's going to come. And so I think that actually is a really significant thing that happened this weekend, just to keep building those guys, keep learning from each other, and have some fun while you're at it, because these guys, again, we're really close with the culture that they have. But when you bring a guy, especially like Zach Edey, who's playing with the Memphis Grizzlies, although they just got eliminated from the playoffs, but was one of the top rookies in the one of the top rookies in the NBA. You know, like that's pretty big deal too, to have a guy that caliber come back and feed back into his college program.
Totally 100% agree on that. The other part, excuse me, that really impresses me about the culture in which has been built, and I know we've said this, the culture. This is dead. The reason why is because it just keeps coming up. Ethan Morton and Mason Gillis, I forget, did they end their careers at Purdue?
No,
they transferred and finished their careers elsewhere. And where are they coming back to? They're coming back to Purdue to spend time with those players that they made a big leap with in the past. It to me, and I'm not saying anything about Colorado State or anything about Duke. I'm just saying Purdue and West Lafayette, Coach Painter, everybody on that roster that they left made a big enough impression upon them, including Zach Edey. He didn't have to come back to West Lafayette to play some pickup ball. He chose to because he loves what the culture is built, and it really says a ton, especially about the latter two, Gillis and Morton, because they didn't move on to the pros. They moved on to another college, for one more year, and they still came back to Purdue. Real big.
And you got guys like CJ Cox and Riley Burgess who were in that photo that didn't get to play with those guys. They were freshmen last year, and so just to keep cultivating those relationships when they didn't even play on the same team, that's really cool. And then another thing to remember too, I don't think Ethan Morton or Mason Gillis really wanted to leave Purdue.
No, I think they had
that extra year, and they had decided before the season that with Coach Painter that they weren't going to use that year of eligibility, and then maybe they thought they wanted to, but by that time it was too late because they brought in the freshmen, used up the scholarships. So they went. They had good seasons. They both made the tournament. You had Morton with Colorado State that
got beat by Maryland,
right? Yeah, got to the second round, and then you had Gillis make another Final Four. So both those guys went and poured into the programs they were at, but then decided to come back to Purdue and hang with the boys as well.
I just think that's it's really telling on what these guys gain as individuals and as a family when they're here because of that. And do I think they would have come back had Purdue not made the national championship game 2 years? Yeah, I do. Do I think that if instead of getting beat by FDU the next year, they flounder and, just struggle to beat all and finish a 3 seed and out in the Sweet 16, do I think they come back? Yeah, I do. Because I think it is it's about basketball, but it's about so much more than basketball as well.
Yeah, and honestly, Sam, I can speak to team culture from a sporting perspective with myself because I run track and cross country at Indiana Wesleyan, and obviously two very different teams and sports and whatnot.
Right.
But having a great culture, which we have at IWU, and being a part of a sport and getting to know the people that you're teammates with and developing that is a really big deal just
Sure.
to springboard you through college and then off beyond. So I could kind of see that in what's going on with Purdue basketball and what's going on with my own team, and kind of have some, I guess, empathy towards that in a way of like I kind of experience or have experienced what they are experiencing,
Sure.
and I just can understand the significance of that, and so I can attest to what you're saying for sure.
Well, I'm really happy with what Coach Painter's done up to this point, is still doing to this point. Like I said, I wouldn't say he's not telling the truth, but he might be stretching it a little bit to a certain extent. But I think it's to drive home the point of the sacrifice that these guys are making, because they probably could have went somewhere else and, like you said, got more minutes, more money. Doesn't matter. They could have gotten more than what they're going to get at Purdue, but they have it in mind. We're here to win a national championship, and I think while while they're setting themselves up for a lot of pressure, I think they're setting themselves up well because they have a pretty level head about them.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think also we could talk about how good Matt Painter is with the press and his whole PR situation. I feel like he always says just the right thing, where
Oh
he
yeah,
tells you what you should know and what's true, but also like puts his spin on it so that uh, the message he wants to send is what's being received. And it's one thing that I like about Coach Painter is he doesn't lie at all. He's pretty transparent, to be honest, with the press, but at the
hmm
same time he knows what to say, what not to say to make sure that his message gets received, and he doesn't give away more than what he wants to give away. But at the same time, it's not like he can't be trusted or loses any credibility.
sure.
He is one of the most honest and most credible coaches, I think, when it comes to his public perception.
He's not giving away the plan, but he's not going to BS you either. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's I am very very thankful that he is the one that's leading. And like I said, Grant, I'm almost 46 years old. I've known two basketball coaches on Purdue's sidelines. You're pushing. You probably only know Matt Painter.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I've been following him, it's been Matt Painter. So,
Right. So like for us, that's pretty impressive when there are other schools within the conference, with it doesn't matter, that go through. It's like there's a revolving door. Every 4 or 5 years there's a new coach coming in, maybe even less depending on the severity of how well they're playing or not playing. But for that's why I'm really excited and proud to be a Boilermaker fan, first and foremost, and then being able to kind of break them down and cover them and stuff like that. It's the icing on the cake, brother.
right. It makes for a fun team to cover
Oh
as
yes,
opposed to like covering a team where you're having a completely new roster every season with a new coach every few years. Like
or
that's just a lot
speculating
to,
about a coach. Yeah,
yeah, like how do you even go about that? It's so hard to predict or to analyze just because you completely don't have a clue. Although there is a lot of content, I guess, in that case, because you have a lot of guys to go break down, opposed to
the
bringing back
silver
most of your
lining is
roster.
here. Oh, well, that brings us to the end of the Friday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. Grant, have a good weekend. I know I'm getting away with brother-in-law, and I are going to go away here in a little bit to go to the casino. So,
There you go.
but uh, everybody else, thank you so much for joining us for the Boilermaker Lounge. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you on Tuesday.